Yeah,
You do
but the people
that,
I'm
you're
speaking to are actually not
doing
in
any
Hex
kind
yet.
of investment whatsoever.
Mm, right. But the people I'm speaking to are not in Hex yet, and they find it a bit obnoxious. You know.
It's okay to find it obnoxious.
Mm.
I mean, I do a lot of obnoxious shit in my private time. Does that mean what I do as a job is now invalid? Like my skills don't matter?
Yeah, but people tend to associate the person with what they can produce, right? If they
They're
think you
probably.
look like a scammer, they won't want to give you their money.
Oh, let's talk about what scammers look like because some of the biggest scammers in history, they look professional as fuck because that's what they want you to believe. So the whole notion of how somebody looks like equates to, you know, how they act and what they produce is completely, I don't get it actually, why people have this completely backwards. Like a scammer is
Yeah,
going to try to appear
look
as
professional.
professional as possible.
Mm.
Why would they, a scammer, make themselves look fucking ridiculous? And you know, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, but that's
Although it's where they on purpose put in spelling errors and like you know they kind of speak, let's just call it speak dumb, so that they narrow their target audience only to the right people. But still,
yeah. But I think it's also how people think though. Like when people see someone dressing in Louis Vuitton gold and all that kind of stuff, they're like, really, this guy is revolutionizing crypto. This is the way people think. But anyway,
yeah, well that's law, I guess.
Not everybody thinks like that though.
yeah, but most
Yeah.
people are. But I still think
Most
it won't
people
matter
go
in the end
one
anyway.
way. Well, most people go one way, and then there's always that one person that goes the other way and makes a change.
Yeah,
The way I
I
see
still
it,
think
we
it
have a
won't
lot of
matter in the end.
community.
Huh?
I could be wrong. The way I see it, we have a lot of contrarians in this community, and it sucks to be a contrarian. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah,
financially, it does suck, in my experience.
yeah. And I think once Pulsechain and PulseX come out and they're successful, all the gatekeeping will have to end.
Like one of the good examples is almost everybody I know is convinced that grayscale is the
Grayscale
best
is the best.
coming to crypto, and
Yeah,
this is a tough argument to go against because technically it kind of is. Like
yeah,
you can make insane returns with them without having to do shit. You don't even need to worry about your own key security. But that's the whole problem with it. Like not your keys, not your crypto. Okay, they manage them for you and they're seem to be trustworthy until now. But you
yeah,
know, they are heavily impacting BTC price. And now in a bear, you're making more loss in BTC than BTC itself. Fair enough. There was a
yeah,
time, I think in 2018, where you would make 100% double, like extra return than Bitcoin itself, which is cool. But
yeah,
I don't know. I'm not buying it, literally.
yeah. And it's not like they buy actual Bitcoin, right?
No, you're buying GBTC, and then let's say you buy 50 GBTC, they're not buying 50 Bitcoin. Well, technically you're buying shares, but it doesn't. Like if you buying 50 Bitcoin worth, like I don't know, whatever 50 Bitcoin worth is at the moment, they're not buying the
Mhm.
same dollar value amount of Bitcoin with it. They're buying some.
Yeah,
So how long is that gonna go without any kind of problem? Also, they
yeah,
are
and
accumulating the largest bag I've ever seen in history in Bitcoin, and they now have the power to move the price whichever direction they, well, it's gonna take a little bit more than that, but they could move the price wherever they want it to go.
but but wouldn't that mean that it's in their interest to keep the price high.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
But then we go back to the same fucked up logic, right? So the same people who are saying grayscale is the best thing ever are saying Hex could be a scam because the EOA has like 90% of the supply or whatever. And
Yeah.
while they agree with the grayscale logic, they don't agree with the logic that it's in the interest of the OA keep the price up. So what is
Yeah,
this
but crypto is
literally a
like
double
religion, isn't it?
standard in action, or what?
Crypto is like religion. If you're a Bitcoiner, it's like a religion. Like Ethereum must suck, everything else must suck. Bitcoin is the truth.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
seems to be. I guess that's the best explanation I've ever heard because it doesn't make sense otherwise.
that's the way I look at it. It's just like religion, you know. You meet someone who's XRP, an XRP person, like everything else sucks and XRP is the best. And whatever argument you bring, he just sweeps it aside, you know.
Yeah, that's scarily accurate, yeah.
Mm. But isn't Grayscale, do we know if Grayscale is fractionally reserved?
There's a chart. What was it called? Discount to NAV. You can see the premium versus discount at any given point, GPTC versus BTC. I think on average it's minus 30% or plus 30% depending what time frame, like bull or bear.
Yeah, but
So I
do they have
suppose,
all
yeah,
the
fractionally
BTC to
reserved.
back up the shares?
I don't think so.
Mm.
I
That,
mean,
that
it's
might
a
be
it's
another reason.
a CEF, not an ETF, so they're actively managing it, meaning like it's just a fancy word for saying they're buying Bitcoin when somebody buys GPTC, but the way I see it, they're not actually doing that. Like they're not buying this the equal amount. So it's
Yeah, because
fractionally reserved in that sense.
it's not audited, I don't think.
I actually don't believe that
It's
it's
street.
fractionally reserved. I think it's fully backed. It just has a discount and a premium on the shares because they cannot create more, right? Basically,
Oh,
the
they
shares
can't
that
create more
exist are
shares.
based. Yeah, but they need to have the Bitcoin to do it because the shares are always pegged to
Well,
Bitcoin.
do they need all of
They
the Bitcoin equal to the amount, or do they just buy some
yeah
Bitcoin?
no they as far as I understand it, they need to have the same amount to back up each share. Let's say they decide one share is 1 Bitcoin. For each share, they need to have 1 Bitcoin. What happens is,
Well,
since
they
the
have
people that are buying,
per share is 0.009
I'm
Bitcoin.
just giving an example. The number of shares has to be directly correlated with the number of BTC. They can decide one share is 1 Satoshi, one share is 10 Satoshis, whatever. They just need to have that peg for everything. They cannot just buy more, create more shares without buying the equivalent amount of BTC. The issue is that the price of the shares can have a discount or a premium based on the supply and demand of the institutions, right? So if more institutions want to buy that paper BTC, the price of their paper goes up against the price of the actual BTC. And then if a lot of institutions are selling it, then instead of a premium, you get a discount. But at least from what I understood, they need to have the same peg for all their paper. So if they decide it's 1 to 1, it needs to be 1 to 1. If it's 1 to 10,000, it's 1 to 10,000, etc.
So when you buy more shares, they go and buy more BTC.
What I think happens, and that's why you have a premium and a discount, is they decided on a specific amount of BTC, and they created the number of shares equivalent to the amount they had, and so the paper is limited as the Bitcoin they have is limited. And so if more people want it, they need to buy it from each other so that you get a premium, and when many sell, you get a discount.
Okay, but they don't. They do increase the number of shares and then go out and buy more Bitcoin, right? To increase the number of shares.
I believe they can do it, yes, but I don't know how regularly they do it, or if they need to do some other bureaucracy step before doing it. But from what I understand, they need to always be pegged in terms of number to the Bitcoin they have.
Okay, so it's fully backed then.
Yeah, that's what I understand. But again, I might be wrong. But this was what I've been hearing and reading about. But I didn't do a full dive on it. So take it with a grain of salt.
But they're not audited, are they?
Well, since they are, go ahead.
The SEC did not approve their ETF request. So they are a CEF, which is not protected in a way.
Yeah, they wanted to make it spot, I believe.
They're suing the SEC, or they're challenging that decision. I don't know how successful that will be because the SEC can do whatever the fuck they want, but still.
Yeah, I believe they wanted to have a spot traded ETF, which right now they don't have. It's not spot. Yeah.
Oh, okay. From what I can see here, they are audited actually.
Yeah, audited, yes, but it doesn't, guarantee you any protections. It's just that it's financially sound. But it would be better for them if they were able to create an ETF, which is backed by the SEC, approved by the SEC. But I don't know. I'm not sure why the SEC is actually not going for it.
And if it's approved by the SEC, it might be included in things like 401ks, right?
Potentially, yeah. I think they're just staying away because of the volatility. Then again, there's volatility in a lot of places, but probably Bitcoin's a bit more.
I don't think there's anything as volatile as crypto. I don't think, maybe penny stocks, maybe. It's not a market I know much about.
Well, I mean, is there to Grayscale by now? Because they're charging 2% still, so they can do that as long as there's no competition around. Of course, a shit deal,
Grayscale.
in my opinion. Yeah.
You were talking about volatility, but if you look at big oil companies and their stock, they are actually very volatile and have been for a while. The small amount I have has actually more gains than if I had hold BTC.
Wow. That's
yeah,
like Exxon.
Well, I can tell you, I think I have two. I think it's ExxonMobil and another one, maybe. Like very small amounts, like 1K or something. But I added for fun, but they are up more than actual BTC.
Okay, I'm looking at the chart now. It is quite volatile.
Yeah, and if you look at oil's future, even more. Like in a matter of like days, you could have had like 10 hex.
Wow.
Yeah, right now
Because
my
that's like,
ExxonMobil investment is like 137% up. I won't tell
that
you the
means you
ones
must
that are
support like,
down, but
huh?
I won't tell you the ones that are down, but the ExxonMobil one is 137% up.
But that means you must support like early this year, right?
Yeah, let me take a look at the dates. Well, actually, it was even last year, like November last year. I just let it roll. And the
Wow,
same
that took a long
for
time to go.
energy transfer. And
Yeah.
it was up more earlier. It was like I already had like 180 something percent. And most of them, they have been going down a bit, but I just leave them there like any other stocks. Like, I don't really care about them much, and since I don't want to pay any taxes on those, I'll just let them sit around for a while.
Okay. But if you look at the long-term chart, it doesn't actually like this short-term period ending last year to this year. Yeah, it can beat BTC, but if you look at from like 2010, because it was like $60 $2010, it's like 87 now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
Yeah.
if you start from last year, it was like 30.
Yeah. But
The
that's
bottom.
because we're in a bear market. Like long term, you're still better off with
Yeah, of
BTC.
course. But I don't know if you, for instance, I follow the oils ETF that went actually almost negative, and then it bounced up to and then
That's
it
for
bounced
oil.
like 10x in a few days. Yeah.
Oh.
I believe that was
What's the name of the?
March 2020.
Without any margin, yes. I don't do margin.
Which ETF is that?
I mean March 2020 when the markets kind of shut down.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was it.
But what's the name of the ETF?
Let me take a look. 1 second. See if I see it here. I haven't looked at it in a while.
Okay.
I think it was
believe
this
one
one.
is US oil.
Yeah, it was a CFD, oil CFD. It was from Ether, even though I don't really like them much. It was the only account I had at the time. And it went to, let me check. Why does this chart doesn't work?
Good morning, America, and the rest of the world.
Good morning, Mr. Jigs.
Hi, Mr. Jigs.
I'm trying to use the tools in the chart, but it's not letting me for some reason. Okay, it dropped down to 742, and this was the time when the futures were negative, and then it jumped all the way upwards to 127. So if you calculate
the
the
one that's
increase,
108 now, right?
it was almost, well, more than 30 times the value, almost 40 times the value in like 1 year or something. 1 year, no, 1 year, 2 years, not even 2 years. It was like 40x. If you bought at the bottom and sold at the top, so 40x in 2 years for traditional markets. I wouldn't say it's a bad
insane.
play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's oil CFD.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that the one that's 108 now?
I see 107, but yeah, it should be close to it.
Okay. Yeah, it went as high as 109 here on the chart I'm looking at.
Now mine was 126 at the top and almost 7 at the bottom.
Yeah, I don't think I'm looking at the same thing. Let me see if I can find it.
Well, there are a bunch of different CFDs depending on the exchange, and they all track different futures and etc. So they might have disparities, but the trend should be
Okay.
the same.
But which exchange are you looking at?
eToro, it's the only one I have an account. I don't really like them much, but at the time it was the only one that was available to me for actual normal fees. So that's what I went with. But again, I don't really pay much attention anymore. I have 7K in it overall, so I don't use it much.
Okay. But it's like it's tracking the price of Brent crude, right?
I think so. At the time I read about it, it looked at specific futures, but I don't know them by heart anymore.
Okay. That's interesting. So there's still some good gains to get in the traditional markets.
Well, they are not as good as most of the ones that you can get on crypto, and you need to time it very well. Like how many people actually bought it at $7 and sold at 126, right? And again, if you don't like manipulation, there's a lot more manipulation in the traditional market.
Isn't it regulated?
Regulated is just a fancy word for allowed manipulation, basically.
Regulated manipulation.
Exactly. And especially if you're talking about oil, because nowadays, if producers of oil actually started producing at full capacity, you could have a bunch of oil in the market, and the prices would go down a lot. So the price of
OPEC.
The price of not only OPEC, but even nowadays in the US, they have more waste to produce a lot of oil due to fracking and etc. And of course, it's only viable if the price is above a certain range, which I believe it's $20-something for a barrel or something like that. But either way, there won't be a scarcity of oil if it's really needed, because there's a bunch of it around and easy ways to produce it nowadays with the technology we have. So the Brent market and the oil market, it's highly manipulated because they are basically always trying to limit the supply versus the demand to keep the price high, to keep not only to keep it viable, but also to profit, of course.
Yeah. Do you have any idea where do you think the bottom is going to be in for HEX?
Well, that's very hard to say. I mean, I believe the $3.03, it's a good price floor. Not only are there a lot of limit orders trying to buy it at below that price. If you search on the different exchanges, but we also have been. We went down there and jumped up again, and we are somewhat stable at the level we are at right now. But it can go lower. The liquidity is small enough that if enough people decide to sell, it can go lower. So I'm not saying that it won't go to 1 cent or lower, but I don't see it being very likely unless a big player comes in and decides to sell it low.
What about if BTC drops to 11,000? Might they drag it down to 1 cent?
Why? Because X is not.
There's some level. The whole market is correlated.
Well, people say that, but last time that BTC went down, X went up a lot, right? And the last cycle, X started pumping a lot sooner than all the others.
But this cycle is
people say that
correlated.
You know that you cannot say something is correlated just because in a period of 2 months does the same thing, right? Correlation means it might go down at the same time, or it might not go down at the same time. You have correlated, which does always the same thing. You have inversely correlated, which does exactly the opposite, and you have no correlation in the middle, which sometimes does the same thing and sometimes does the opposite. So you cannot compare like 2.5 years of existence and assume it's correlated just because of the last 2 months, right? And even daily,
it's been correlated for at least a year, because even their peaks are similar in this last bull run. Like the peaks are around the same time.
You are going to make me pull up all the charts.
Well, I do think the entire space is correlated to Bitcoin. The entire space.
Most of the space is correlated with Bitcoin because most of the space is traded directly to Bitcoin or things that are traded for Bitcoin.
Yeah,
the most liquidity for the most liquidity. Yeah, but the most liquidity for X right now it's USDC.
But somehow it still moves
like upwards of 90%. It moves with people's sentiment, and
it's moving also with the rest of the market, like not just a specific subset of it, right?
Exactly,
we are in a sort of recession, and you'd be foolish to think that there's dry powder to go around during such a time into any asset. I mean, yeah, there is a little bit for some, small minority of people, but overall, no.
And if you go to any coin market ranking and you click on the day change, you have things that are going up 10% right now, even though BTC is down 1%, right?
The only things that ever go up for sure during recessions and crazy bear markets are commodities most of the time. There's a reason behind
it. Yeah, like the high oil price. But then again, Ukraine might have something to do with that one. Ukraine or Russia.
So BTC, I'm going to pull up both charts.
Oil, I don't know, but gas for sure. Gas definitely has to do with Ukraine and Russia. Oil.
Oil also has a little bit due to the.
Isn't Russia like the third or fourth largest supplier of crude?
Yeah, it's also but for Europe mostly gas because it was one of the biggest suppliers of gas to Europe.
I think even crude, because I think globally Russia is like number 3 or number 4. That's significant.
Yeah.
Oh. Actually, the peak for Hex was earlier than BTC.
One of the difficulties when determining correlation is you cannot fall into the tunnel vision trap. Right? So you pick 3-4 assets that you think are correlated or that you want to determine if they are. Sure, you can look at those 3 or 4 and determine correlation based on daily price fluctuation between each other, right? What you're forgetting is to zoom out and look at all the other markets that are also going on at the same time and what they're doing. Because if you completely ignore an S&P 500 crash by like 30% and just look at BTC versus HEX or BTC versus ETH or even BTC versus some specific ETF, you're missing out the bigger picture. You do need to be aware of what's going on elsewhere as well.
The overall economy.
Yeah. Well, the economy is not the stock market, and the stock market is not the economy. But yeah, you need to look at other financial markets.
So the S&P 500 peaked in like November, December. Yeah, December. Hex peaked in September. BTC peaked in November.
Elmaya, do you not think that with the current economic situation that we could be in for an extended bear cycle? No one seems to be mentioning it, but I don't know. I don't. I think we're in for a 2 or 3 years of a serious downtrend. Would that not affect Bitcoin?
We may or we may not. Like, it depends on multiple factors. Actually, the rest of the economy doing poorly might actually help. So it really depends on what the big players decide to do and where do they decide to park their money, right? Because if you are an inflationary system with house prices at all-time high, stocks at all-time high, most of the crypto also at all-time high, where are you going to park your money? You're probably selling all your assets, having dollars or euros or whatever, and you are getting eaten by the inflation unless they can keep that in check, right? So you either park in things that are still undervalued, or you just have cash, right?
Which is getting devalued. Or you buy Rolexes.
Well, yeah, that's an option, but
Yeah.
I prefer other stuff like X.
Yeah.
I can tell you that I invested like 30K in X for the last 2 months. So
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense just to I mean, it's a safe store of value, isn't it? Stick it in there and get the appreciation until
yeah,
things turn down.
even if the
The
value
next
goes
5
down,
years.
and even if the value goes down, I'm still making some yield out of it.
Yeah.
And actually, the last thing I did was like last 5K I decided to invest. I actually added liquidity to Uniswap V3 at a specific range, like from 3 cents to 3 and 3.8 or something like that. And I'm just watching it fluctuate up and down on my range, making fees. Like I started like last night with 5K, and I'm already like in almost $40 of fees only, just from fees. And the amount I have
Yep.
that I invested in is about the same. So hey, I'm generating yield out of wanting to buy an asset. So it's 2 in 1 basically. I'm slowly buying the asset and earning the fees in the process.
Yeah.
Did you do that on Uniswap? Did you say?
Yeah, Uniswap is free. It was a very simple process, a fairly simple one. I just needed to decide the range in which I was going to add liquidity, the amount. In this case, since I wanted to put it at a price below what X was because I wanted to buy X, I only put the USDT, so I didn't need to put any X. And so while the price is within my range, I'm basically providing liquidity and earning the fees that people pay when they trade back and forth. And
And $40, that's in a day.
so since it's only on a small range, I know for sure that I'll be only buying X between the price I set. So I'm not using it as a liquidity provider. I'm using it as a buy method. So I'm buying the asset, and while the price doesn't move completely to below 3 cents or to 3 cents, I'm just collecting fees in the process. It's like dollar cost average until the 3 cent marks, plus I'm earning fees in the process.
And you said that $40 was in a day.
Half a day.
Half a day. Oh. From a 5K investment.
Yeah, let me check right now. I think I put it yesterday around 8. Right, so it's maybe more than half a day by now, but still, it's not.
We can even make it a day. That's that's 0.8% a day.
So to tell you the exact numbers, right now I have $35 in fee that I could collect. The price of my liquidity is about the same because the price is close to the price I entered in. And this was for a period of time of second, where is the date?
Guys, look on the screen.
What's that? Amazing.
So much
It,
pixels.
yeah, it blurred
Sounds
again.
like 15
Adrian.
pixels altogether.
Adrian, what country is that?
Romania.
Oh, Romanian brother. I'm Greek.
That is a glacier lake, and there is another lake behind this part. I was earlier over this one, and that one is smaller.
Me a favor. I'll send you all my PulseX for a nice, beautiful Romanian bride.
This is one of the most amazing roads to drive in Romania.
Adrian, where is that?
So it's named Transfăgărășan Road. If you search it, there is even an episode from Top Gear, and they said it's the best road in the world.
This looks beautiful,
The
mate.
what best in the world?
The best road, driving road to drive.
Country.
Romania.
That's where my wife's mother was born. She wants a grandmother was born in Romania. She's been dying to go there for years.
It's an amazing view, mate. You're
Surprise,
very
Mr.
lucky.
Jigs.
Hey, Mr. Jigs, aren't you supposed to go see Pepe today?
Oh, the 16th, or let me tell you what date.
So about what we were talking before, it was actually 8 a.m., not 8 p.m. So it was
8
basically
a.m.
a day. So in a day, it was like $30 to $35 in fees.
from a 5K investment.
Yep.
That's good returns, man. That's really high. Like,
What token is that?
What? Sorry.
What are you guys talking about?
I provided liquidity in Uniswap v3 in a tight range where I wanted to buy X. So I just put in 5K of USDC between the range that I wanted to buy X at, and in the meantime, I'm dollar cost buying, dollar cost averaging on the price between the minimum and the maximum of my range, and collecting fees in the process.
Oh, amazing. All right.
So in one day, basically from 5K, it's like $35 of fees, and the price hasn't moved much lower, but I'm just collecting the fees in the process while it trades in this range, basically.
I'm not going to mention any coins on here because I'll get in trouble. But I'm on one. It's been about a month, and it's actually pretty cool, man. And you end up, whatever your initial investment is, you gain 3% a day.
Yeah, but this is completely decentralized, and this is just by users swapping and trading and paying the fees, and you're collecting the fees they pay when they swap, basically. So completely trustless. You are in control of your keys, your value, and you're basically. It was just a price I wanted to buy X at, and while it's there and doesn't move up or down, I'm just collecting fees in the process. So.
Oh, amazing, man. Good luck.
Yeah, actually, it was my first tweet about it. I just tweeted a few hours ago about it just to show the example. And it's very easy to do, and anyone that wants to dollar cost average on X on a specific range can do the same thing and earn some fees on the process. Also give it some buy support at the same time. So it's win-win for everyone, I believe.
Boy, what's your Twitter? Oh.
I just created my Twitter on like 2 days ago. So I'm not a very social media guy. But I found this information interesting, and so I decided to tweet it out for people to see what is possible, and maybe instead of just market buy or sell, you can start doing it. And basically, I paid like $10 to actually add the liquidity in terms of Ethereum fees. But if I just leave it there and the price just does what is been doing in the past day, just going up and down in this tight range, I'll just be earning fees all the way up.
Good, man. I might have to private message you.
Sure, no problem. Also, I'll probably just tweet about more technical stuff. So don't expect to see like daily posts like every minute or so.
But you only added one side, right, of the liquidity, just the USDC side.
Yeah, because I put it in a range below the actual trading prices at the time. So I didn't really need it to add any X. So I just added my 5K USDC, decided the range where I wanted to provide liquidity. And while the price is in that range, which is like between the 3 and 3.8 cents, I'm just collecting the fees from PulseSwap.
But you know the funny thing, from my calculations, you're making more than staking.
More than staking what, X?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But again,
at least for this period, anyway.
Yeah, but this is because the price of X is down, right? When the price of X
once it leaves that range.
Yeah, and this is only on this range, right? Imagine that the price goes to 4 cents. I'm not earning anymore, right? Because my range is like from 3 to 3.8, right? So at 4 cents, I'm not earning anything. So I'm only earning if the price is in the range I set it at, and that's it. So it has some limitations. So the goal to actually add the liquidity pool like I did, it would be just to either dollar cost average in the price of buying X, or just collect fees while doing it, basically.
Staking yields can be worth just about whatever, depending, when you cash them out, if you do. Whereas this is exactly within that range. So
yeah, of course.
Hard to compare.
And again, I'm adding liquidity in USDC, not in X, because my goal is to buy X, not the other way around. So my X is staking.
Meyer, have you been using Hedron?
Sorry, I was muted. I thought I was speaking to people. I was saying that this is just another tool that people can use just for more optionality and better entries. And in terms of fees, I also believe it's cheaper than swapping, but I'm not sure. Just don't quote me on that. But from the fees I paid, it looked like that at the time.
Looked like they got what?
And about other third-party tokens, You know that we don't talk about it here. So I don't really have any of the token. I mean, I can mint some of the token you mentioned, but I haven't done so yet.
I didn't either, but I was interested. All right, thanks.
So the issue about other third-party tokens, in my eyes, even though I agree that some of them might, how do you say? I wouldn't say improve, but add optionality and things on top of X. But the thing is, you are always moving liquidity from one place to the other when you start just creating other mechanics and games and on top of things, like, and adding more tokens and etc. that people want to buy or sell. So it's very hard for me to believe that overall it's net positive for the project unless you are actually using those tokens to onboard more people onto X, which does not seem to be the case because the people I see talking about all those tokens more are actually Xicans. So you are actually removing and incentivizing people to move to other things rather than X, with the excuse that it's to help out, which for me it's not really a thing I like to do or participate. So that's
what
my
about Hedron
2
and
cents.
Maxi? I would say
Again,
Hedron and Maxi do
so
promote
let
more usage of Hex, right?
okay, so we don't talk about names here. Okay, that's
Oh,
the first.
okay. Sorry.
But like I was saying, again, I believe some that are built on top of X to add some sort of value to it or optionality are interested, and may have intrinsic value because of it. But when you start adding new things on top of it, and new mechanics, and new tokens, and new tokenomics, which is starting to be the case, it just looks to me like taking value from one side and put it on the other side. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying, but there's another thing that Richard talks about, right? Where he says, like altcoins. He used to think altcoins were like competitors to Bitcoin, but then later he realized they mainly complement it and help it rise more, like help it get more adoption. So wouldn't you say these other projects do the same thing for Hex?
You see Richard, you saw Richard many times on streams talking about even the projects you mentioned, and you heard what he said. Even though they are creating interesting things on top of X, there are also third-party tokens that overall, if Mexicans want to invest on, they invest on them instead of investing in X, right? It's basic math. If you have 5K and you either put it there or here, if you put it there, is a loss here, right? It's same idea. You cannot put the same. Exactly, and depending on the tokenomics, some of them I believe are interesting. But then when you start to create more and more stuff and more tokens, as you see every day coming up, you are just diluting the market and diluting the people that are investing in it by making them want to invest in different stuff that most of them probably don't have real utility overall, or with the excuse to onboard more people, but actually the people you're using is the people that are already in the ecosystem. So you're sort of cannibalizing yourself. At least that's what I see happening on most places. And
yeah, I would agree with
people
you on
are
that.
free. Yeah, people are free to do whatever they want, and I'm not here
I would agree with you on that, because like the example that Richard gives,
to
I
tell
would say
them
a
not
lot
to
of
do
alts.
anything. I just want to.
Yeah, I think a lot of the alts brought
Sorry, did you?
people in that weren't in Bitcoin to begin with. So maybe if these projects were bringing people in that were not already hexagons, then yeah. But I think Pulsechain would do that once it comes out.
So the
Omar, you're losing connection or something.
sorry, someone just decided to start vacuum. What was I saying? Oh, so it's true that if a coin brings adoption and brings eyes onto the ecosystem that wouldn't otherwise have, that's a plus overall, right? There's no argue there, okay? And that's purely math. Give me a second, sorry. So it's lunchtime for the little one. So of course it's those other coins bring more people in, and it's a plus if they do something interesting or helpful or that improves the ecosystem itself. But for instance, creating a meme coin, create a meme coin to bring light and adoption to Pulsechain or whatever. So I'm going to create a meme coin based on a subset of people that already know about the project to somehow bring adoption from other people outside the community that the community exists. That makes zero sense to me. Or another example, I create a meme coin to bring adoption to the Pulse chain. But all the guys that already have SHIB and whatever other meme coins on Ethereum, they will have their own coin here. They don't need any other meme coin to know about Pulse or to have their meme coin on Pulse. So it makes no sense to me. It's like, what's the purpose other than moving liquidity out of one place to another? I don't really see it. Maybe I'm not looking at the big picture, but I don't see any gains there.
Unless that meme coin can somehow get traction the way Dogecoin did and Shiba did, and it'll be like the next Shiba, and then it brings people in. Yeah, unless it does that.
So, yeah, but do you believe that any new meme coin right now that you create on Ethereum side just be copied to the Pulse side will have a bigger community than SHIB already has, than Dogecoin already has, that any other meme coin that's big enough already has in the Ethereum side that will also be copied with all their community to the Pulse side? Will that really move the needle? That's the big question, right? And in my wise, especially in the way that was done, I don't believe so.
It might not have the community now, but I never thought Dogecoin would have the community it does now, even Shiba, to be honest. I always saw Dogecoin as garbage, to be honest. It still blows my mind what it's achieved.
Well, I think both of them might be a little bit garbage because, again, if you think about this way, it's garbage, but does the same thing that Bitcoin does and more. So it's actually garbage better than BTC. So it's not really garbage if we look at that in that sense. But either way, I don't really own.
Though?
What? Sorry?
Does Dogecoin do anything more than BTC though? I don't think so. What else does it?
Well, I believe it has some staking mechanic and etc. I don't know if it's fully decentralized or not. I don't really know about the coin, but as soon as it does send and receive, it's on the same level as BTC, right? So anything on top of it, it's a bonus. So so that's just one example, right? And when you start creating circular dependencies and circular projects that somehow one makes the other gain and the other makes the first one gain, that's like the starting of a Ponzi, like where you are making money circulate infinitely in a pool without any real value, or not a Ponzi, but you're not gaining anything. It's just going around, or being diluted to the benefit of a few people, and not really bringing more adoption. And that's my problem with most of the other coins. I'm not to say that maybe some are not interesting or worth looking at. I will never talk about those here for the reasons we all know. I might be able to talk about them in other places, but even then, it's with a grain of salt, because unless you do something very well and with a big amount of thought behind it, with a goal of actually helping, you're just creating new coins, new tokens to dilute the people that are already in your project. And when I see people that started in the X community and etc., and are now just promoting everything in their mother, just because somehow it's connected to X and Richard Hard's ecosystem, it makes me cringe a little bit. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
I still think in the long run it'll help, because Dogecoin is pretty much a copy of Bitcoin, and for the longest period it didn't really add much to Bitcoin, I don't think. But then eventually it became viral, and I'm sure some of its success affected Bitcoin positively.
So
but it took a long time though.
The question is, how much percentage of the value of the coin, or of the value that the Sorry, can you hear me?
Hello? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, my phone is just died. The thing is the economic value that all those coins will bring towards the ecosystem be enough to compensate the value that was not put in the ecosystem in the first place, or that it was taken out of the ecosystem? That's the question. And in my opinion, I believe in most cases it's unlikely for it to happen.
The advantage of that third-party project, token, is that it's acting like wrapped ether, right? You can use it, and it cannot exist without HEX anyway. So,
again, I'm not talking about all projects being bad, and the concept of HSI stakes. It's an interesting one. It's debatable if it's good or bad for the initial value proposition of X. Some are in favor, some are not, just for the general concept. I was on both camps at different points in times, but either way, it's adding functionality, and I see that as a plus anyway. But most other things are not, and we don't know even the future of all the projects that exist right now. So again, the important thing to think about here is, will the value that those coins bring to the ecosystem is more than the value that leaves the ecosystem and the value that's diluted by. That's basically it.
When it will be on Pulse, any new system will get value.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Any new project on Pulsechain based on HEX will add value to the system.
I didn't get that completely. But I do think the launch of Pulsechain will be the best thing that's ever happened to Hex. It'll bring so many people into Hex, so many new people.
Gotta hit the sack, guys. Good night. Cheers.
All right.
Have a good night. So guys, I'll also leave for a while. I'll be back later.
All right, man.